My four best friends outside of my family are Grant, Aaron, Jill, and Amber. Grant is a national defender. He was my doubles tennis partner and was 5 years older than me. We had many discussions about divorce, reconciliation, and the expectations and prospects of married people. We talked about it over dinner and drinks at the tennis club, spectators at sporting events, and playing cards with other men. Aaron is a psychologist. We organized many charity events together and coached our son's basketball team and our daughter's soccer team together. Aaron is the same age as Grant and 5 years older than me, although his son and daughter are the same age as me and are good friends with my children. We also talked about divorce, reconciliation, expectations of men and women, and the psychology of marriage, sometimes with Grant when Aaron joined our card game group, and often with both of them. Jill is a marriage counselor and my biracial partner. Jill was 3 years older than me and a close friend of my wife, Mary. Besides spending time at the pickleball court and eating lunch, Jill almost always hangs out with Mary and Jill's husband, but sometimes alone. We also had many discussions about divorce and reconciliation. Amber is 3 years younger than me. I met Amber when I rescued her from a difficult situation. She claimed that I saved her life, but I think that was a bit of an exaggeration. Anyway, we became friends, and she became friends with Mary. Amber is a public relations and media expert and probably has more friends and acquaintances than anyone I know. The medical organization I work for has used it on my recommendations several times for PR and media relations, with great success. I probably call or text her at least every other day, and she often comes over to our house on the weekends and we meet up with her and her date if she has one. Another thing about Amber is that I'm the only true friend she's ever known. She moonlights as an elite escort, aka prostitute. How I found out is another story, which I won't tell now, but our relationship is such that she knows that I won't judge her, so sometimes she even tells me about it. She is single, but because of the many people she knows and her part-time job, which she loves, relationships and expectations of married people are often discussed. If I ever cheated on Mary, which I don't want and can't imagine, I would want to be with Amber because she is the most beautiful woman I know and has a vibrant personality. But even if I was willing to cheat, which I absolutely won't be, it would never happen to her because I think it would ruin or destroy our friendship, which is the last thing she wants to go back to, and when Faith saved her. Things in his life, and I often gave him good advice on questions he asked me. My four knowledgeable friends told me that while there are exceptions, they know that the two most common situations where one or both spouses cheat do not work out, making it impossible for the aggrieved party to reconcile and divorce. The husband lacks self-confidence so much that he will strive for reconciliation under any circumstances. In both cases, the base image is black and white. In other words, there is no gray area here. Of course, there are exceptions, but according to my friends, couples only experience gray hair 10 to 20% of the time. I often wonder how I would feel if my spouse betrayed me. Everyone, Grant, Aaron, and Jill, told me this. I never really talked to Amber about it, but based on other things she said, I'm sure she feels the same way. You can't do this. You won't know until you're done. You'll experience it. I'd like to think I'm one of those gray thinkers, but I didn't know that until it actually happened. Four of my friends told me that unconditional divorce usually doesn't work for people who don't cheat. People who don't cheat find a better spouse about 25% of the time and settle down, or don't find the right person 75% of the time. A cheater usually doesn't have the afterlife of regret and debauchery that non-cheaters expect, but 75% of the time that doesn't end well either. The remaining 25% recover almost completely. If an agreement is reached, the non-cheating partner usually, 60–70% of the time, feels inadequate and ashamed of the agreement if it remains in force, and usually divorces within 5 years. Again, this doesn't look good to both scammers and non-scammers. Most people's lives don't go well after this, but they remain poor and hopeless. After all, black or white is usually not the answer. A gray perspective has a better chance of success. My name is Sam Bartley. When this story begins, I am 35 years old and work as a senior medical laboratory technician in a large medical institution. I have a Bachelor of Science in Medical Laboratory Science from the University of Cincinnati, a Master of Science in Medical Laboratory Management from Virginia Commonwealth University, and an ASCP certification. Marie Buttry, also 35, has been married to me for 11 years and has 2 children, Jimmy, 9, and Julie, 7. Mary works in pharmaceutical sales. This alone shows that she is beautiful and smart, because although it is unfair, pharmaceutical companies only hire beautiful salespeople. Besides being smart and beautiful, Mary is also in great shape. She and I train together and separately at least 4 times a week, and we have above-average muscle mass and endurance. I enjoy my marriage to Mary. We seem compatible in almost every way. I think our sex life is better than 9 out of 10, and our communication is probably better than 10. Mary was a wonderful mother who gave our children real love and attention, but not too much. Although we have some division of labor based on sexual expectations, for example, she does most of the cooking and I do most of the lawn work, we try to divide all household chores equally and participate in both children's activities. I help with all the housework. Julia is from ballet and took her to practice more often than Mary, who took Jimmy to all her basketball practices and where I met him to coach her basketball team with Aaron. We took a similar approach to Julie's soccer and Jimmy Band's other activities. Overall, my life is very good. I want to continue this life. At the beginning of my story, my life was 99% what I considered ideal. Until this critical part of the story, I had never thought about the extent to which I would accept this ideal before embarking on difficult and large-scale changes. One day in May, shortly after Mary's 35th birthday, I realized that 99% of my life was suboptimal. It was Saturday, and Mary returned home late from the gym. I had to coach Julie's soccer team for a 30-minute game, and Jimmy had to go to group practice. She got out of the car with her first aid kit and gym bag, a little tired, pushed Jimmy into the car, gave me a quick kiss, hugged Julie, and said, "Good luck." After the hurricane left the house and Julie changed into tights and shorts, I moved Mary's first aid kit, most of which she had left on the living room couch, into her home office. Maybe he didn't close it properly. Maybe the latch was damaged when he dropped it on the couch or something. But when I picked it up and moved it quickly and safely, the drawer opened and the papers fell out. Luckily, his drug samples were in a secure compartment in his suitcase and were not taken out because he did not know where to replace them. Since all the files were scattered, I didn't think it was important to put them back together. When I picked up the papers scattered on the floor along with brochures and order forms, there were 4 cards. One of them was a cheesy birthday card I sent. 2 were homemade cards made by children, and the 4th was a sexy card with the words, "Happy birthday to your beautiful pizza booty" on the front, and a picture of a slice of Italian pepperoni pizza with the words, "With Playmates" inside and "More fun" at the top. Handwriting between and Playmate, as well as the shadow of a sensual reclining female figure. Inside it said, "It was an honor, Rob." I was shocked. Although I didn't really know who Rob was, I had my suspicions. For the past few months, Mary has been training a new salesman named Rob, forgot my last name, to take over some of her territory while she took care of a sales rep who got pregnant and left the company most of the time. Territory. Business. I took photos of Rob's map from the outside and inside. I then put all the papers back in Mary's suitcase, put the card under the remaining papers, locked the suitcase, and put it back on the living room couch, instead of taking it to Mary's office. Just 5 minutes later, her name and photo appeared on Marie's local website, Robert Driscoll. He looked no older than 25 years old and was as handsome as any pharmaceutical representative, and perhaps even a little handsomer than usual for such representatives. In fact, he looked a lot like the guy Mary was with when I charmed her, in her opinion. Julie really wanted to go to the game, so we got in the car and drove off. I continued to talk to him to take my mind off what I had just discovered, which completely shocked me. I somehow managed to get through Julie's game without vomiting, embarrassing myself, or acting like a sphinx, although I relied more than usual on Aaron's deals and strategy. All the girls were happy that we won with a score of 4-3. This always happens when the game is close and both teams score. It's nice. Later, Aaron and his daughter Julie and I, Julie's best friend from our team, and a girl from the other team who was also a good friend of Aaron's daughter, went out for smoothies. While everyone at the table enjoyed their milkshakes, I excused myself and dialed Grant's cell phone number. Grant answered just as the doorbell rang. "Boris, you'd better not give up on the doubles tomorrow," he said without even saying hello. He called me Boris, referring to Boris Becker, the former German professional who is considered the 11th best player in the world. Tennis player of all times. I hope he calls me that because he thinks I look like Becker, height 91 blonde, blue eyes, very handsome. Or because of my tennis skills, and not because after his retirement, Boris was found guilty of tax fraud. No, idiot. How can I stop you from just asking a few questions? So we have an attorney-client relationship and you can't even send questions to anyone else? I asked. Isn't this a joke? He answered after a pause of several seconds. No, I answered a little more firmly than I intended. Okay, now we have verbally agreed that you will give me $1 tomorrow after the doubleheader, and I will email you a contract that you will sign on Monday, okay? Okay, I quickly replied. Okay, what's the question? Only one so far. Who would you recommend as the best private detective? After a long pause, he asked, Why do you want to know? You can't ask me questions now, just answer them. Oh, Kai, he muttered. Wesley's partner. Tomorrow I will give you a postcard from him. Thank you, I said. I'm ready to play tennis at 8. I'll do everything I can. And ended the conversation. That Saturday night, Mary behaved completely normally with me and the children, and even announced, after the children had gone to bed, that she wanted to pretend to be a bonobo. I think I'm very good at segmenting because I describe myself very well. First I licked her to a quintuple orgasm, then I fucked her from behind so hard that she almost passed out, and when I was done, she was soft as fabric. And that's it for a very grateful 5. The next morning, while I was almost sleepwalking through the first set of doubles tennis, everything exploded in the second set, and I actually played some of the most aggressive tennis I've played in years, hitting the ball like I was Rob Dries. Head, Cole, Grant, and I played a good team and won 2, 6, 6, 3, 6, 1. Gant gave me his Wesley Associates card, and I gave him $1. Grant didn't ask any questions, but as we left the courtroom, he said sincerely, If you ever need to talk, as a lawyer or as a friend, please let me know. I thanked him and went home. That night, Mary and I practically repeated the bonobo simulation from the previous night, but this time the asshole was in the chair position, while I fucked her nipples and squirted my monster load into her pussy. Wesley and Associates had evidence of the accuracy of Grant's advice from employees Annabelle Watson and William Bennett. Based on the information I provided to them, they provided me with a full report within 2 weeks. Unfortunately, I can't say that the report was what I wanted, but it was what I expected. 10 days after I hired a private investigator to investigate the case, Mary and Rob decided to stay at a Motel 6 instead of going to dinner at Olive Garden after visiting a doctor in the suburbs about 15 miles away. They stayed in room 117 for 1 hour and 3 minutes. Wesley has high-tech equipment, and Annabelle and William are smart and savvy, so I took some photos through the window with the curtains not fully closed and noisy. After confidentially reviewing the evidence and paying the $4,215 bill, I discovered that the sexual relationship between them was purely recreational. I won't go into detail why, but a few reasons are that they almost never kiss. Verbally, of course, not every time Annabelle or William visually look at them, and because Mary says he doesn't do this. There was nothing bad about my company, some things were even positive, and Rob never criticized his girlfriend. To confirm my findings, I called Annabelle and William after the exam, told them my results, and asked them if they agreed with them based on their experience. I definitely felt like I had been watching it for 2 weeks instead of just Motel 6, Annabelle explained. I have to agree with her, William agreed. To test this out, I made an appointment with a marriage counselor who was a friend of Jill's and whom I had met several times. I didn't want to embarrass Jill, and gave her the information I had without expressing my opinion, or Annabelle's or William's. Although he expressed some reservations about hiding his butt, he agreed with my assessment. Plus, to be honest, there is absolutely no difference in how Mary treats me, the kids, or our mutual friends. Now that I have the information I need, the question becomes, what should I do? I took the gray approach, which was recommended to me by 4 of my closest non-family friends, long before I had the problem. It's about thinking about how my best life has deteriorated, what's best for me, what's best for my children, what's best for my parents and friends, and even what's best for Mary. The conclusion I came to is this. No. 1. I can't let Mary and Rob's affair continue. No. 2. If I confronted Mary directly, it would definitely harm our future relationship. We will never be 99% ready again. Maybe we can get it down to 80% if we work hard. Maybe 85% if we're lucky, but never 99%. Number 3. The kids will never know. Although they are too young to understand it now, it is clear that one day they will understand it. I don't want this day to come. No. 4. I don't want to hurt Mary physically, emotionally, or mentally. I just want her to believe that even if I don't confront her, she might find out and it will scare her for a long time. No. 5. I want Rob to pay. I responded like a caveman. The only thing I really want, even if it never ends well, is to defeat him. I wanted to give him a few quick kicks to the balls with a steel-toed boot, like in an online fantasy game, but I knew it had to be more difficult and time-consuming. It doesn't mean he told his girlfriend about it because sooner or later Mary will find out. No. 6. If I could bring Rob back, if I could plant a seed in Mary that I knew but never argued or blamed her for, and that she never knew for sure, then I could imagine my life. At some point, we will get back to 90% or more, 100% for children. No. 7. I want to act quickly. I don't want any more contact between Mary and Rob. Now that all the parameters are set, the question arises, what exactly needs to be done? Because I work for a medical company and run a laboratory, I know a lot about drugs, viruses, bacteria, and other substances that enter the bloodstream and their effects on the human body. After checking all the information, I found that my first preference was the best. He infected Rob with herpes simplex virus type 1, HSV1, and herpes simplex virus type 2, HSV2. In both cases, symptoms may appear within 12 days. If a particularly virulent strain of HSV1 is used, it will almost certainly appear in vitro within 4 days. I needed to find a way to infect Rob so that he would show visible symptoms within 4 days, while ensuring that Mary was not infected. I asked Annabelle and William to carefully examine Rob and try to find a way to ensure that Mary did not become infected before she showed obvious symptoms. Mary knows enough about medicine to easily recognize HSV1, avoid it like the plague, and be nervous. It turned out that everything was almost perfect. The only thing that didn't work perfectly was that I couldn't stop Mary and Rob from having one more and final fun sex. 13 days have passed since the first incident that Annabelle and William witnessed. This time on Tuesday, they visited the office of another suburban doctor for the last time that day, in room 142 of the Holiday Inn Express. This time, they stayed in the room for 57 minutes. The sound was good, but there were only 2 grainy photographs. The tone was essentially the same as the first time, and did not contradict my conclusions about recreational sex. On Thursday, after Tuesday's game, Rob played racquetball in the school locker room. This out-of-town employee, whom I hired and paid online and never met in person, met Rob in the locker room and injected him with high concentrations of HSV1 and HSV2. I raised the issue with one of the guys in the office and asked Mary to stay home on Friday. She'd only been on 2 dates and was almost done teaching Rob how to do it on his own. I also lied about winning a competition in Las Vegas, much to Mary's surprise. Mary and I's surprise vacation was from Saturday to Wednesday of the following week. She never saw or contacted Rob over the weekend. A short trip to Las Vegas had the added benefit of improving Mary's and my sexual compatibility, which had been with us from the beginning, although she was still struggling to get over her relationship with Rob. Although I didn't need it to have normal sex with Mary, I wanted to give her the sexual experience of her life, so I bought some small blue pills and a thin vibrator. In 5 days and 4 nights in Las Vegas, Mary and I had more sex than we had in our entire lives. This even included me fucking her ass with a vibrator a few times, something we had never talked about before and something she was reluctant to try in Vegas. But one day she fell in love with both of us. One day with her. Recovered. Fainting. We used it on her ass while I fucked her pussy. After a trip to Las Vegas, Mary went to work on Thursday morning and was happier than ever. She returned on Thursday evening nervous and almost in a bad mood. I know exactly why. She saw that Rob had herpes on his face. Annabelle took some great photos, and I didn't tell her about my out-of-town agent. The following week, Mary played the role of a long-tailed cat in a rocking chair factory. Apparently, he had taken a blood test, obviously not at my lab, although Rob did it there, and was waiting for the results. After extensive investigation, including tapping her phone, I have concluded that she is no longer in a relationship with Rob, who has in fact been fired. I guess drug companies don't like it when their salespeople call with herpes on their faces. Rob was apparently aware of the symptoms when he had his first seizure and immediately sought treatment before it ruined his life forever. Either way, I don't care. I foresaw the day when Mary's blood test came back negative. It was Wednesday, a week after our trip to Las Vegas. He seemed like the happiest man in the world. That night, she attacked me. He'd been asking me for sex ever since we got back from Las Vegas, first complaining about being sexually tired from our sexual adventure there. then complaining that he didn't want me to catch the disease that even put him to sleep. In bed, a guest room. She looked like a bitch in heat and rode me like a champion cowgirl. Over the next 2 weeks, I subtly tortured her into listening to a conversation about a man who had been fired from her clinic because of herpes. She didn't ask me how I treated it, which he discovered even though she asked, Tell me why the medical profession is very small and small. As I said, my lab tested Rob's blood. Over the course of several weeks, he would sometimes look at me strangely and wonder what I knew, but this never affected his behavior. In fact, she seems to be trying to be more flirty and sexy than usual. You may be wondering how I spent all the money I should have spent without Mary knowing. The answer is simple. It cost me over $25,000, including a private investigator, an out-of-town agent, a trip to Las Vegas that I had to earn, and many other unexpected expenses. I borrowed money from Amber without interest and agreed to pay it back gradually over 30 months. I could easily hide it for 30 months, but not 6 weeks. But before Amber lent me the money, there was a warning. He wants to know why and promises not to tell anyone. I trusted her, especially because she, like Pollyanna, still believed that I had saved her life. Even if it wasn't true, to me saving her was a big deal. It required me to put myself in danger. So I said to him. I tried to tell him only the basics, but in the end he managed to tell me the whole story in 2 days, while Mary and the children went on a short trip with their parents. I also told him that if he didn't forgive him completely, I would probably fire Mary after the kids went to college. Taking out $25,000 in cash, he told me, Here's the deal. You pay them in installments over 30 months, but that's not the end. Work for a while. A few years ago, if you threw Mary overboard, you and I would become one and see if we were compatible in the long run, okay? I couldn't believe what he said. This means that he has subtle feelings for me, and although he would never try to destroy my marriage if I did it myself, he wants to try it with me. But you're younger than me and maybe you'll get married sooner, I muttered. The disciple means nothing. The chance that I would marry someone other than you is slim, but if that happened, we would reconsider our decision now. Is there a deal now, or should I put the money under the mattress? After a pause, I said, We'll get along. That's when Amber kissed me on the lips for the first time. It wasn't a kiss. It was the kiss that set off the smoke detector. After she broke it, my knees became weak. That won't happen again until Julie goes to college, he said with a smile before putting some money down my pants, stroking my hard cock, and tossing the rest on the table before walking away. Needless to say, it's been 8 years since Rob got herpes and Mary became a nun. I now believe that I have lived over 90% of my optimal life, and am very glad, especially considering how well my children are doing, that I chose the gray, aka measurable method, focus, not black and white focus. Sometimes I almost feel guilty for giving Rob herpes and causing him to get fired. Almost. The reason I don't ultimately feel guilty is because, given my personality, I would never have taken the gray approach by not reacting to Mary having sex with him. Will I leave Mary when Julie goes to college? I can't say at the moment. I know Amber is behind the scenes. Sure enough, 30 months later, I paid off her loan and used the final payment to give her a diamond tennis bracelet. Since then, I have not seen her without a bracelet. Just 2 days ago, while we were hanging out with other people, including Mary, and at one point falling behind everyone else, Amber said to me, In case you were wondering, I quit my part-time job. I smiled at her and she smiled back. Julie only has 3 years left of college, he laughed. Then he gave me the second hot plasma kiss of my life, and we quickly caught up with the rest of the tourists.